Hi class, today's lesson is lesson 3-3. It's on adding and subtracting decimals. Now we're going to feed off of what we did in the previous lesson on estimating with operations with decimals, so it'll be a more natural transition for you today. We're going to use some of those skills today. In fact, our purpose for today is to add and subtract decimals, plain and simple. Some of you know it, and some of you need a little bit more review, and others this is brand new to you. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. No vocabulary for today, at least no new vocabulary. Here we go with example 1. Here we have a table. It's Carly Patterson's preliminary scores. So now, of course, she, as you can see, is a gymnast, was a gymnast back in the 2004 Olympics. And these were the points that she scored for each of the 4 events in gymnastics. The question asks us, what was Carly Patterson's preliminary total score in the 2004 U.S. Championship? So we're going to have to look for the exact amount. But first of all, before we total these points, which is what they're asking, we're going to estimate. We know that we're going to eventually add 9 and 7/10, 9 and 7/10, 9 and 3/10, and 9 and 45/100. But before we do that, we're just going to go ahead and estimate. Now, when we estimate, we know our numbers are going to be, well, 9 and 7/10 is close to 10. This is close to 10. This we'll say is close to 10 as well, and this close to 10. So our number should be around 40. When we add things together, it's going to be less than 40 because we rounded up in all these cases. So it's going to be around 40. I'm going to draw a little cloud here and put 40. 40 is the estimate. So when we actually do the figuring, and this is what I want you to write down here, is 9 and 7/10. When we add numbers, we're going to go ahead and line up those decimal points. 9 and 7/10, 9 and 7/10, and this is hard using this pad, but here we go. 9 and 3/10, and then 9.45. Notice that 5 is all by itself in the hundreds column. So what can we do? Of course, we can add zeros to the end of these decimals because adding a 0 doesn't change its right value. So now we can add these together. 0, 0, 0, and 5 is 5. 4 plus 3 is 7, and 7 is 14, and 7 is 21. Now watch, I got to put that decimal point down here before I move over to the ones. And that all was 21, so I carry that over. I have 4 9s. 4 9s make 36. 36 and 2 is 38. So my answer to the problem is 38 and 15/100 was her total score. And I'm going to put points there to label it. Is that close to our estimate of 40? Absolutely. Did I assume that it was going to be underneath 40? Yes, because we made sure that these numbers all rounded up to 10. And maybe that's incorrect vocabulary because 2 of them I rounded up. The other 2 I found by clustering because these were close to 10. I said, well, these are close to 10 as well. Now it says, how many more points did Patterson need on the uneven bars to have a perfect score of 10? Well, I see that she's got 9 and 45/100. And if I estimate this first, I know it's going to be less than a point in order for her to get to that perfect score. So I'm going to put less than 1, and that's all I need to put at this point. Oh, it looks like a nose and a face. Weird. So anyway, that is less than 1. So now, what do I do? In order for her to get a perfect score of a 10, what is it that she needed? So I'm going to write down 10.0. Why? Because I know there's going to be a decimal involved here. And if I subtract these scores from each other, if I subtract 9 45/100 away from 10, I should be able to get that difference about how many more points did we need in order to get there? Well, if I subtract here, I certainly need to make it look similar. Because we have 9 and 45 hundredths, I'm going to go ahead and add a 0 in this hundredths, because adding a 0 to a decimal does not change its value. Absolutely. So now we just simply subtract. I am borrowing here. And finally I get to 10 minus 5 is 5. 9 subtract 4 is 5. I drop that decimal point. 9 subtract 9 is 0. 0 subtract 0 is 0. So it was 55 hundredths. 55 hundredths is the answer. Is it less than 1? Yes, obviously. So I'm pretty sure I've got the correct answer. Next, we have doing some mental math to add and subtract these decimals. So it asks us, find each sum or difference, 1 and 6/10 plus 4/10. So if I'm going to think mentally, I'm going to go ahead and bring this in. What am I thinking as I look at that 1 and 6/10 and 4/10? And I'm adding it together. What I'm queuing in on is this, the 6/10 and the 4/10. I know that 6/10 plus 4/10 gives me 1. All right, so I know now that this 6/10, 4/10 is 1 plus this 1 right here. So 1 plus 1 is 2. So I know my answer here is 2. Now how about this next one? 3 subtract 8/10. Well, I think I'm going to count on here, because I know 8/10 plus 2/10 gives me 1. So how far is it from 1 to 3? How far do I need to go? Well, I need to go 2 more. So I take this 2/10. I know that 3 minus the 1 here gives me 2. So there's a difference of 2, and then 2 and 2/10 becomes my answer. Equals 2 and 2/10. And I can do that mentally. How do I count on? 2/10 plus 8/10 is 1. 1 plus 2 more. I shouldn't do that in there. 1 plus 2 equals 3. That's how I get there. 2/10 and 2. 2 and 2/10 that approaches 3. Lastly, I've got some examples that involve just a little bit of simple algebra. Here it says evaluate 7 and 52 hundredths minus s for each value of s. So all we're doing is substituting. Starting with a, we have 752 minus s. I'm going to replace the s with a 2 and 9/10. And then we're going to have to figure it out over here. I'm going to put it 752, 7 and 52 hundredths, subtract 2 and 9/10. I'm going to add that 0 just so we have the evenness here. Hundredths minus hundredths, 2 subtract 0 is 2. Have to borrow. 15 subtract 9 is 6. Bring down the decimal point. 6 subtract 2 is 4. 4 and 62 hundredths. Lastly, wow, they're going to have us do this one, which is a decimal to the 10,000ths. So we have 7 52 hundredths minus s. That's 7 52 hundredths minus 4 and 5,367 10,000ths. I write it over here again, and of course you're copying down everything I'm doing. Once again, I'm adding zeros to the end of the decimal. It doesn't change its value. I'm going to start subtracting. 10 subtract 7 is 3. 9 subtract 6 is 3. 1 subtract 3, can't do it. I'm going to borrow here. 11 subtract 3 is 8. 4 subtract 5, can't do it. I'm borrowing, but we're doing a lot of borrowing here. 14 subtract 5 is 9. And finally, 6 subtract 4 is 2. 2 and 9,833 10,000ths. All right, to finish us out here at the 10-minute mark, or the 10-minute 30-second mark, we have a little bit of a think and discuss question to complete this problem. It says, show how you would write 2 and 678, excuse me, plus 124 and 5/10 to find the sum. So you're going to show that in column form and solve. And finally, say, tell why it's a good idea to estimate the answer before you add and subtract. Now that's something we didn't do in this last portion that we should have done, but we'll do in class. Now, if we take a look at this and we go back and estimate, we have 7 and 5200ths, which is close to 8. Subtract a 3. 8 subtract 3 is around 5, and check that out. That's around number 5 if I rounded that up. Once again, if I rounded that up to 8, subtract, well, it's 4.5, so that's going to be around 5. 8 subtract 5 is going to be around a 3. And look at that, 2.9833, very close. All right, so that takes care of that. We'll see you in class.